What's going on, folks? It's RGT85. Welcome to the second channel, and welcome to the launch of a new show that I have come up with called Who TF, because it's YouTube and you can't say TF in the first minute of a video without it getting demonetized, is. And in this video, or in this series, we're going to be basically asking content creators, video game people, I don't know, whoever I feel like talking to, random questions. Half are serious, half are just things I'm kind of curious about. And as you can see here, we have our first guest on today, Mr. MVG. MVG, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Sean. I'm honored to be the first guest on your podcast, all the way from London, England.
All the way
as well.
from London, England. So let me give a little backstory on the London, England joke, because a lot of people don't realize it. I made a video once and I was talking about like the British invasion of YouTubers, and I mentioned like Slopes Game Room, Lady Decade, or Husband, Top Hat Gaming Man. And I mentioned MVG in this as well. And I was dead ass sure that the man was from like England, but he's not. He's from Australia. So that kind of leads us to our first question: is who are you? Like you kind of popped up on the scene here. You kind of just, you know, your channel obviously does very well, but it seems like you've been doing this for a long time. So like, how did you get your start in this?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to cover there, but I'll try to give you the elevator pitch shortest answer I can, because I know, you know, we don't want to talk about this for like 2 hours or anything, but like I am someone that like started doing YouTube like years ago. Like if you look at the channel, that's the day that it started, it was like in 2007, right?
Oh wow.
So it was one of those things where I was just kind of messing around with it. I was like, what is this YouTube business, you know? And it didn't really get serious until like 2016, I want to say, when like I got monetized, right? And
Right.
then I saw people that I followed starting to make a living doing it, right? Making money off the platform. And I was like, I kind of want in on that. I want some of that honey, you know? And I think really that's kind of how it all started. But, you know, as you know, with YouTube, it's like you can't just jump into it saying, I'm going to make money and be successful, because you won't, right? You know
Right.
that. You know that. I mean, I think we all know that. But at the end of the day, like I thought, well, what am I gonna cover? And you know, I didn't want to just be like another video game guy, right?
Right.
Or a let's player or something. Because honestly, man, like I don't think from an entertainment perspective I'm that entertaining. Like I think someone like you, like I love watching your videos, because even on a slow news day, you can still make videos entertaining, right? So
Right.
I don't think I have that skill set. But what I do bring to the table is, number one, obviously I have a lot of technical background, right?
Right.
Which does pertain to a lot of the stories that are prevalent to the industry. And two, I have a retro gaming collection of stuff like a lot of people do, but I also have interesting stories to tell about like the technical side, or the hacking side, the modding side. And when I was doing YouTube, I never really felt like anyone else was doing that side of the video game space. Like they weren't really talking about mod chipping and like hacking your PSP and just all that stuff. So I thought I'm going to jump in on that, because number one, I'm really interested in that space, and two, no one else is really doing that, right? So I think, you know, in order to be someone, to make a name for yourself, you got to bring something unique and interesting to the table. So hopefully that answers that question. But I guess, you know, how I got here to the US, that is a long story, but short answer is I used to live in Australia, obviously, for many years. When I was about 32, I had a first marriage. It went completely terrible. We got
Mm.
divorced, and I moved over here, and I met my now current wife, and we've been married ever since. And yeah, man, I've lived here ever since. I worked here, and now I do the YouTube and the game development stuff, and things are going great.
So you have a legal green card.
I do. Well, I'm a citizen now. I actually got my
Citizen.
citizenship. I got my citizenship like, oh, it's maybe 5 or 6 years ago now. So I got my green card back in like 2010 or something. And then when I can't remember exactly why, but I felt like it was time just to get the citizenship. which doesn't really give you much different from a green card other than you can vote and you can join the army and you can serve on a jury. So those three things really don't
It sounds
have any
terrible.
benefit to me. So I kind of just held off on it for years. I was like, what do I need this for? But it is really awesome to be a citizen. Like, it was probably one of the best days of my life becoming a citizen of the US, because, I mean, the US, baby, it's America. I love it, so.
Do you have to take, I remember on the Simpsons episode where Apu was becoming a citizen, is the test, like, is there a test where it had to be like, who was the first president? It was George Washington. Really? That's so bizarre.
So what they do is, there's a test, right? I think there's 20 questions that they ask you, and it's like, I think you have to get, if you get any more than 4 of them wrong, you fail, right? So the pass rate is actually quite high. So you really can't screw it up. I mean, you can get maybe 1 wrong or 2, but if you don't study for it and you try to kind of wing it, you're going to flunk it and you won't get it. So I remember, and there's like a website where you can just run through it over and over again, and they ask you different questions every time. So I ran the test for 2 hours or something, and I was pretty confident by the end of it. And when you do go for your citizenship, they will give you the test, right? And the test can be any random 20 questions about American history and stuff. But in the end, I passed it. But they do ask you those questions in a test when you get your citizenship.
I think it'd be fun if every 5 or 10 years they gave that to people, and then if you fail it, they kick you out. You gotta go somewhere else.
I thought about that. Cause I remember I had friends after I got my citizenship, and they were joking, saying I would never have passed that test. And look, some people probably wouldn't have, but I mean, that's what you got to do, man, to get in. So,
So you came over here when you were 32. So obviously
it was a little older than that. I think it was around 35 by the time I actually got here.
So obviously
myself.
Most of your partying days were probably done then, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So what's the drug of choice in Australia?
Well, I was never a big drug guy. I dabbled, right? I think in my 20s, weed was a thing for a while. But I never really got into the pill side as much. But back when I was in my clubbing days in my 20s, cocaine was the big thing going around.
Yeah.
I mean, you do a couple of lines and then walk into the club, and you just go crazy, right? So I think
30 minutes
that
later,
was kind of the big
miserable.
thing going on. But don't do drugs, kids.
No drugs. No drugs. This is all just for historical purposes only. This could be on your upcoming citizenship test, because we're going to push for this to be a thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What is your favorite video game of all time?
Oh, this is a tough one, but I have 2, right? And I don't really know which one is the best, because on any given day I could probably change my mind. But Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past is definitely one of those, and Super Metroid is another one. Now I know that you're not a big Super Metroid fan.
I'm not a big Super Nintendo fan, because I didn't have it as a kid, so I didn't play most of the Super Nintendo stuff till I was 18 to 20.
Well, see, for me, Super Nintendo was, I think, when we talk about favorite games and favorite systems, there's always some history and nostalgia tied to it, right? And for me, the Super NES was, so I just finished high school, and I know I'm showing my age, right? But whatever, I don't care. I just finished high school, and no, that's not right. I just finished college, and I was trying to land my first job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a computer science degree and stuff, but at the time, no one was hiring programmers straight out of college, because this was a long time ago. This was before Windows 95, right? So
3.1, baby.
Yeah, with the computer science degree, it was well, what is this? Most employers don't even know what this is, right? What is this field that you're in, and how can that benefit us, right? Little did they know that shit would blow up, many years later, right? But whatever. At the time, it was really hard to find work, and I remember I was getting unemployment benefits for a while, for the first 6 months, and I was like, you know what? So I came from a computer household, so we had a Commodore 64 and an Amiga and stuff. and I wanted to get like a game console. And I was like, well, there's the Genesis, well, the Mega Drive back in Australia, and
Mm.
the Super Nintendo. So I was looking, reading the magazines, and I was like, aha, Street Fighter 2 is out on the Super NES. And this was before Champion Edition, right?
Right.
Final Fight is on the Super NES. I love both those games. That's the system I'm getting, right? It was just purely just because of what was out at the time. So I got the Super NES, and so for me, it's a part of my child, not my childhood, but my growing up, right, if you will. And it was just a period of time where, I wasn't working, and all I was doing was playing Super NES games. And every time I'd have enough money saved up, I'd buy another game. And dude, I remember when Super Metroid came out, because I'd never played Metroid on the NES, right? So I'd heard about it, but I'd never experienced it before. And plus, NES for me was, I loved the NES, but it was also a system that I never really connected with back in those days, right? It's only like these days that I really appreciate the system so much more. But back then, I got Super Metroid, and I was like, man, this game is incredible. It's like the best game ever. I'd never experienced kind of gameplay mechanics like that before, and it really just connected with me. So yeah, either that or Link to the Past, I would say, are probably my best two games. But I got to ask you, I know you're interviewing guests, but what are your favorite games? What's your favorite game?
Depends on the day, like you
Yeah,
said. Maybe Metal Gear Solid 3, because
that's a great pick too.
and there was a lot of stuff attached to it, because like I hadn't been playing games. I was more into like drugs and stuff because I was in
Mm,
high school, and like I really just wasn't playing many games. And I remember we had a snowstorm in North Carolina, and like if you got like an inch of snow, like everything closed down. But this was like 8 or 9 inches of snow, so like everything was closed down. Like you couldn't even leave because there's no plows or anything like that. And so I was stuck at home, and I was like, "What the fuck am I gonna do here?" And so I found my PS2, and I somewhere along the ways I had bought a copy of Metal Gear Solid 2, and I was like, well, I think I'll play this. I want to see what this is about. And that game just blew me away from like a story standpoint, like all of the government related stuff, and
yeah.
conspiracies and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is fucking awesome. So I ended up spending my drug money on like Metal Gear stuff, and like I bought a bunch of like Metal Gear collectibles. I remember I got a GameCube with Twin Snakes on it, and I had played Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 over at my buddy's house, but I didn't have a PS1 at that time. I had an N64, but I was familiar with it, but I wasn't like super into it. But then when Metal Gear Solid 3 came out, I had a little shitty apartment, and I remember there was no video game stores in my town at the time, so we had to drive like 45 minutes away and to a midnight launch of Metal Gear Solid 3 at a GameStop. And I took a bunch of my buddies with me, and they were all like pilled out and shit. And so I was like, well, I could use this to my advantage. And there was like this big ass poster, like it was almost like a store display of Metal Gear Solid 3. So we're waiting in there, and I'm like, Adam, I was like, dude, you got to do me a solid. He's like, what? I was like, gank that shit. Cause like he was a super klepto. He was like, I got you. And so like after I got my copy of it, we were like, cause there was a bunch of people in the store. Like all of a sudden I look over and the display is gone, and I'm like, great. So I head out to the car, and like he's just sitting, cause I had a Ford Explorer, and he's sitting in the back of it, like in the cargo area, just like laying with the signs. Like, I got it, dude, I got it. So we went back to my apartment, and like two of my friends that were with me, they brought their they called up their girlfriends and had them come over. And I remember I'm starting up the game, and like these motherfuckers just keep talking, and I'm like looking at it, I'm like, yo, hey, oh, let's chill out a little bit. And they just keep going on and on. I eventually kicked everyone. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. I'm enjoying this game. You're making me miss the story. Get the fuck out of here. Because
Yeah.
I mean, it was the story was important. But yeah, I would, like Metal Gear Solid 3, Shenmue, Super Mario 64. Those are some of the games that I always cycle through there.
Dude, I think all those games are probably my top 10, even Shenmue. I love Shenmue when it came out. I was just completely,
Oh.
I mean, I know that game hasn't aged very well, and people are going to be like, in the comments, going to be like, oh, Shenmue is terrible. Shenmue was amazing when it came out.
Yes.
It was incredible. Absolutely incredible.
You
It
gotta
was a game that changed video games, you
It was
know.
before GTA 3. Grand Theft Auto was still a top-down style, it was a game that there was nothing like it, where it was
Yeah.
like a day and night cycle. Businesses were open and closed during certain hours, a story-driven game. Like, you didn't have these living, breathing, interactive cities really before a game like Shenmue, at least on the 3D scale. I mean, there was
Yeah.
there was 2D games on the computer, top-down games, but computer games. I mean, are they even really games? Like, let's be real here.
Right. And I love the fact that you could walk into the arcade, the U arcade, whatever it was
Yes.
called, the Y, and just play Space Harrier and Afterburner. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, I know, in this day and age, it's like big deal, but back then, man, it was incredible. Like the whole package was just amazing.
Well,
Chef's kiss.
well,
So
plus,
good.
like, Shenmue was coming off of the N64 and the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Saturn. Like, you didn't have games that, like, okay, look at like Ocarina of Time. Great game, but like, look at the graphics of Ocarina of Time, vanilla version running on your N64 and your CRT, and then look
Yeah.
at Shenmue. It's like night and fucking day. Like, they're
Oh
two
yeah.
completely different entities. It's
Good, yeah.
crazy. Favorite Madonna song?
Um, I'm not a huge Madonna fan, but I definitely I respect the music. Oh, I think I'm gonna say Borderline or Papa Don't Preach
Papa Don't
would
Preach is
be.
a good one.
I think Papa Don't Preach. Like, I can listen to Madonna like in the car, right, and not like turn it off. You know what I mean? Like, I respect the music for sure, but I was a metal guy when I grew up, and I still am a metal guy, right? So
Hmm.
I was like listening to like Iron Maiden,
Hmm.
Judas Priest, British bands, of course.
Of course.
AC/DC and all that stuff when I was growing up. So I didn't really get into the pop stuff as much, but it's funny because nowadays I listen back to some of those songs, and some of them you can really tell are just like amazing, amazing works of art. So I respect the music, even though I'm not the biggest Madonna fan, I will say.
Did you ever read her sex book?
No, but friends of mine had the book, and I know it was like a big deal for a while. But
Dude.
like, I saw the video.
Yeah, I saw the video too.
I mean, that was kind of cool. But I've seen, like, we've talked about this, but like, watch a Cradle of Filth video. I mean, if you want to watch porn, a pornographic video clip, a music video, just throw on a Cradle of Filth clip or something.
But
You'll find.
she licked the dude's butt in the book.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like,
I mean,
that's wild, man. I bet Madonna,
pretty
like,
crazy.
in her day was just like, I would still try it. Like, she's kind of crazy nowadays, but it would be like, look, I need you to channel. Here's some of that good Australian cocaine. I'm gonna need you to channel your early 20s stage, because
Yeah.
that's your peak. Now, you also play guitar, don't you?
I do. I do. I got a couple behind me. It's all grayed out, but it's all blurred out. But yeah, I got two 6 strings and a bass. And I will tell you, I barely touch them anymore. Not that I don't want to play guitar, I just don't have the time. But I do like playing. Yes.
No 7 or 8 strings.
No, I kind of dabbled with like a 12-string acoustic for a while,
Jesus.
but I never was like good enough to get my fingers like really pressing down on those strings in the right way. I think playing a 12-string good is an art form that I don't have. Like, I'm more of a shredder, I will
Right.
say. I can play lead. I can put down some pretty decent leads, but I think that, the 12-string stuff is kind of beyond my level of skill, especially now because like I haven't played for a while.
Like, 8 strings are pretty easy because you're just playing like the same bullshit you play. Like, you're
Yeah.
you're pretty much just playing the same corn riffs that you've been playing for 20 years, just, maybe gen them up a little bit. But the problem with the 8 string is, unless you have like an Axe Effects or something like that, it always
Yeah.
sounds like dog shit. Like, it
Yep.
always sounds like dog shit. I've been trying forever to get a decent tone out of my amp because I don't do the whole plug into the computer thing, but it always just sounds
Yeah.
like. So I always just
Yep.
go back to my 6 and like drop D or drop C it. I'm like, this is good enough. I don't know
What
why.
kind of amp do you use? I know you got a decent one, right? You've got
No,
a
it's
Line 6 or something, or
no. I had a Line 6, but I got rid of it. I got some PV amp.
okay, 5150 or
No, it's one that has a bunch of built-in shit to it.
yeah.
Like I want to say Viper, but I'm pretty sure that was the Line 6. I don't remember. But
See,
like
I have behind me, I've got a Marshall tube amp,
mhm,
and it's a fucking beast of an amp. But the problem is, um, you got to turn it up loud.
right.
Like if you want it to sound good, you have to crank it. You can't turn the dial up to 2 because it's going to sound like dog shit, right? You got to at least crank it to 4, and it's 100 watts. So
Mhm.
already, like, there's HOA violations and stuff going off in my neighborhood. So it's kind of wasted on me at this point, you know. And I've tried to figure out ways to like play it and make it sound good at low volumes, and really there's nothing that I can really do. So I'm actually looking at stuff like Axe effects and stuff because I've
Yeah.
heard like they're amazing if you dial them in well.
Uh,
But I also don't want to go down that rabbit hole of buying all this musical gear
yes.
to find a sound that I'll never be able to find, if that makes sense. Because I feel like that's a rabbit hole that I could spend like 10 grand on and be like,
Yeah, because the shit's
at the end of it,
expensive.
be like, I still haven't found what I'm looking for here, you know? So I don't know.
I feel like all these bands, like, because like you'll watch like a rig tour or something, and it's like, okay, what the fuck do you eat? Crackers?
Yeah.
You drink pond water? Like, how the fuck do you? In the music industry isn't what it used to be, buddy. Like, how the fuck
Yeah.
do you afford this shit? And it's like,
I know, man.
I don't know. It's just crazy to me.
Well, I think a lot of musicians that kind of I grew up listening to, like Megadeth, right? They're all got like YouTube channels now, right?
Yeah,
So, you know, they all do. I mean, they all hustle just like we do, you
yeah,
know. Like I think having multiple streams of income, especially if you're in the music business and you're not like blowing up like sales on streaming charts, you're going to be struggling for money, you know, just like a lot of others. So um yeah, I mean, I see a lot of, you know, musicians have YouTube channels and stuff, Patreons and things to,
well,
and
and
then even live streaming, you know, to make more money.
yeah, like T-Pain put out a chart a couple days ago, which will probably date this video, but it was like it was showing how many streams you need to make X amount of dollars on each platform. And I think YouTube Music was like you need like 200 streams to make a penny.
Yeah.
Like what the
Yeah,
fuck
it's
is that?
ridiculous.
It's so bad. It's so bad. Like it
These
just
these dudes should just make YouTube channels, honestly.
I mean, look at
And
Deftones. If you look at the
yeah,
Deftones YouTube channel, it's just Steven Carpenter playing in like his house, playing all the Deftones songs on the guitar, and like just a
mhm.
couple different camera angles, and people watch it. But yeah, it's a weird industry that, I mean, unless you're getting like a brand deal or you're getting a deal from a record label and they're fronting you a bunch of money, which then in turn, if you have any longevity, it fucks you in the long run. I don't know.
Yeah.
All these industries are predatory. Any sort of entertainment industry is predatory, and that's why they don't like things like YouTube, because it allows you. Yes, YouTube has changed a lot. Yes, you could talk shit about YouTube. Yes, you could talk about the cuts that YouTube takes, but at least YouTube allows you to be independent.
I will tell you, I got this story. When I finished high school, I was playing guitar a lot, and I was actually in a band with some other buddies in high school as well. And we would play Iron Maiden covers and stuff. And we actually used to rehearse like every week, and we were actually getting really good. I got into college, and I kind of lost touch with those guys over the summer. And at the end of the summer, when I just got into college, um, the drummer calls me up because he was kind of the leader of the band and said, "Yo, we need you back in the band. We've got gigs, we've got tour dates, we've got a record deal. Join us," you know. And I was like, "Fuck, you know, what do I do? Do I go down this path of, you know, music, or do I stay the course and, you know, become a nerd, right? An
Right.
IT nerd?" And I'm very fortunate that I stayed the course and chose the IT nerd route, because I never heard from that band after that at all. Like
They're all
nothing
dead.
nothing ever came out of it, right? Like it was like I think what happened was the tour got canceled. Like they played a couple of shows, they got another guitar player. The tour got canceled. The record deal fell through. Blah blah blah. You know, the usual story that you kind of hear with that stuff. And I don't know, man. Like there was a part of me that was like, damn, kind of wish I just jumped on board and just made some bad decisions for a couple of years and got a little reckless. But I don't know. Like I've always liked to play it safe. I've always liked to have a backup plan with anything in life, right?
Yeah.
It's not just that. Like even YouTube, you know, I do other things on the side. As you know, I work in game development, so that brings in
So you
income as
say.
well. So there's always going to be something else, right? Like if this video doesn't get any views and YouTube dies tomorrow, I'll still be fine. You know, I'll still have something else to move to. So I've always kind of been that person, had that mindset about things.
See, I've always been the opposite. I remember one time I was at my job when I was doing the pharmacy tech stuff, and me and the pharmacist, because it was a slower pharmacy, me and the pharmacist, like, he was definitely like kind of, I wouldn't say a father figure, but like, because my family didn't live where I lived, like I would go to his house for like holidays and stuff, or holiday meals and stuff. So we got along really good, but we were both very hot tempered. And I remember one day he was on the phone with someone, and I was like, hey, this lady's got a question. And he was like, okay, I'll be there in a second. And like a minute or two goes by, and I'm just kind of standing there, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I go over there, I'm like, yo, she's got a question, you know, wrap up this phone call. And he's like, all right, give me a second. And then like another minute goes by, and I'm like, fuck this. So I go over there, I'm like, yo, get the fuck off the phone. This lady's got a question. And he just like slams the phone down. He looks me right in the face and he screams, shut the fuck up. And I'm like, and this is a store full of customers and stuff. This is either an Eckerd or a Rite Aid at the time. And I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to like that? And he's like, you motherfucker. I was like, you fucking apologize right now for saying that, or else I'm getting the fuck out of here. He's like, you won't do shit. Meanwhile, the lady's still at the register. The store manager comes out of the office. What's going on here? The store manager was a fucking dork that I went to high school with. And he fucking hated me because I was banging the cashiers up front. And he was trying to like bang them too. Like that's why he would hire them. And then they would like me. So like he would try to get me fired for like harassment and stuff. It was the most bizarre thing in the world. But anyways, so we're just kind of going back and forth. I'm like, look, motherfucker, you better apologize or I'm getting the fuck out of here. He's like, you won't do shit. You won't do shit. So I remember I balled up my smock and I threw it in his face. And I'm like, fuck this place. And I just walked out, and I'm walking out with my middle fingers up as I go out of the store. And so I sit in my car and I light up a cigarette. The manager comes running out there, and I have my window down. He's like, Sean, what's the problem? What's the problem? I remember I just rolled up the window on him, and I just took off, and I went home. And I got home, and I called my mom. I was like, hey, I just quit. And she was like, what happened? So I told her the story. She's like, oh, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't really know. And so I sat at home for like 2 months, just like selling some of my video games on eBay and stuff to make money. And I remember the Wii had come out. He was and they were doing like around the Christmas time, they were doing the thing where like you would wait in line before the store opened, and then you'd go into the store and hope that they had enough. Yeah. So the GameStop was right near my house because I ended up building a GameStop in my town that I ended up working at. That's a story for another day. And I remember I was driving by the line, and he was out there. And so I just pulled over, and I got out of my car, and wait, no, I think I was in the line for some reason. I don't know, something like that. And for some reason, I ended up getting into that line, but I already had a Wii, so I don't know why. Yeah. Maybe I was hanging out with a friend or some shit. And he's on the line, so he's like, hey. I'm like, hey. He was like, how you been? I was like, not bad. How are you? He's like, not bad. I'm like, that's cool. He's like, so you found a job yet? I was like, nah. And he was like, oh. I was like, how are things there? He's like, I hired some woman, and she's absolutely insane, and I hate working with her. I was like, oh. I was like, why don't you fire her? He was like, well, will you come back to work? I was like, yeah, I guess so. And so like,
and that was it.
That was it. The next day, I went back into the work, and like everyone was like, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I work here again. And like, that was it. Because I get over things pretty quickly. I hold grudges, but I do get over things pretty quickly. But it's kind of like, I don't know, just something set me off that day. And like, that's how I've always been. I've been terrible. Like now I'm much better with backup plans. Like I save and all that shit. But like in my 20s, man, I didn't give a fuck. I was like, I'll figure this out one way or another. Fuck it.
I think you kind of described most people's fantasies about quitting a job.
Dude,
Basically
it
saying
was,
"fuck you" and walking out.
yeah,
Right.
it was great.
That actually happened to me. Not maybe. I mean, I didn't like say "fuck you" and and have my two middle fingers up as I was walking out of the office. But the last kind of office job I had, even though we're very different, Sean, we're also very similar in the way that we do things. That's why I like you so much. But like, I
Are you
remember
hitting on me?
yes,
Okay,
the
okay.
the last job I ever had working in an office was back in 2017, and one of the managers yelled at me, right? Which, hey, I don't care about getting yelled at, right? But if you're going to yell at me, let's go into a room and say your piece and say what you want. But this was in front of like everyone, all
Mhm.
the employees, kind of
Yeah.
what you just said,
Right.
and it made this guy look like a jackass, and more than me. Like I wasn't embarrassed at all. I was just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You know, if this is your management style, then you can do this to someone else. I don't want to be part of this bullshit.
Right.
So I ended up quitting. I didn't quit that day, but I just gave 2 weeks notice. Like a couple of weeks later, I said, "Nah, fuck it, I'm out." At that point, I was like, you know, I've worked for so many shitty bosses in my life that what am I doing? You know, like this was at the point where YouTube was going well. You know, it was starting to blow up for me. I was making a decent amount of money on that. Limited Run just hit me up about working with them. So I was like, fuck it. You know, like I said, I usually have a backup plan in place, but this time I was like, I'm going to give this a go. You know, see if I can just go independent and see if it works. And man, I kind of kicked myself that I didn't do it earlier. You know,
Yeah, me too.
but you know, that's what you do, I guess. But
Mates.
yeah, I ended up quitting just in the same way you did. I just didn't, you know, do it as dramatically as you did. But like people that, you know, go off at you in front of a crowd, like you just know that those people aren't fit to be good leaders. You
Right.
know, as much as you know, you don't want to hold a grudge or anything. I think about that and I was like, I don't want to be in this situation ever again. So, you know,
Yeah.
find someone else to yell at type of thing.
It's crazy. I remember, I don't know why what the fuck is that noise? I remember oh, it's a fire truck. I was at my last job before I went in YouTube full time, like I was just in very don't give a fuck mode because it was a smaller pharmacy, like a family ran pharmacy, and all the employees, like the longer I worked there, the more I realized that all these employees that were there that had been there for a long time, they each had individual problems. And
Mm,
like whether it was availability, whether it was showing up on time, whether it was flexibility, and I had none of those problems because I had nothing going on, so I didn't care. So I quickly became like the go-to person, and I definitely use that to my advantage because I remember I was at the store with my boss one day, and he's like, the parking lot looks bad. I'm like, yeah, I guess it does. And he's like, there's a bunch of cigarette butts out there. I was like, well, they're not mine. Maybe like one or two of them are mine, but you know, probably customers. He's like, you need to go out there and clean it. I was like, no. He's like, why? I was like, it's too hot out. It was like 100 degrees out that day and I was wearing khakis. And I was like, if you would have told me to do this earlier before I came into my shift, I would have brought some shorts and done it, you know, no problem. But you know, whatever. I'm not doing it today. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll bring some shorts. He's like, no, it needs to be done now. I was like,
mm.
the only way I'm going out there is if I'm in my boxer briefs. And he was like, well, fine. I don't care. Just get it done. I'm like, fine. You trying to call my bluff? Fuck you. So I took my pants off and I went outside and I was in my boxer briefs and my little collared shirt. And I was just up there, I had a little broom sweeping up stuff. Customers would come in, be like, hey, how's it going, Mrs. Blanchy? How you doing? And so one of the other girls that worked there was coming in the afternoon. And so she pulls up and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, I'm cleaning. Well, why are you in your boxers? I was like, well, Jason told me to clean. I said it was too hot. And if you let me go home and get some shorts, I would do it. Or I would do it the next day. And he told me, no, it needed to be done today. So I went ahead and took the initiative. And so she went in there. She was causing a fuss. He came out there. He was like, get back inside. I was like, what? I was like, you authorized this. What's the problem? But it was like, at that point, like I could literally like get away with murder because everyone was quitting, everyone was
Yeah.
going somewhere else, everyone was having these fucking mental breakdowns and shit. And I remember one girl was like, she put a gun to like her husband's head and like
Jesus.
got arrested. So she missed a bunch of work. She was like 40 something. Then she starts fucking some like 20-year-old dude, and everyone, because you know, it's a very small pharmacy with employees. So everyone's like, is she okay? Is she going through some breakdown? Like a bunch of Adderall was missing, and they're like, what do you know about this? And I'm like, come on. If you know me, you would know that I'm a downer person, okay?
Mm.
You know, if you got a bottle
Mhm.
of Zans missing or something, then you could come talk to me. Adderall, no, that's not my gig. And it was just, it was bad. It was bad, but it was fun because there was lots of stories there. And
Mm.
so we're going to wrap this up with the most important question of the
Oh
world.
boy.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how excited are you for the Intellivision Amico?
I would give it a solid 8.5.
That's good.
Yeah, I will say that if and when the Amico does release, and if Tommy you're watching this, hopefully it will this year. I actually would like to get my hands on one and mess around with one because I want to see what it can do. You know, like there's been a lot of videos made, there's been a lot of articles written, there's been a lot of things that have been said, but let the system do the talking,
Right.
right? So let's take a look at it. I'd like to check one out. So yeah, I'd give it an 8.5. It could be a really interesting and fun little diversion this year in the world of video games. So I'm all about that sort of stuff. So let's see what it's got to offer.
Yeah, I think it might be interesting. I don't know. It's just too expensive for me. And
The price is very counterintuitive, and it is very hard for me to just kind of drop $300 on something like that.
right.
But you know, for the sake of the channel and stuff, I may end up getting one and
Oh, I'm
taking
sure
it
that
apart.
video would
Yeah.
fucking blow up. And then you'd have half of the people praising you as the greatest human alive, and then half of you
Mhm.
ready to murder you in your sleep
Oh, that's
because
fine. I get that all the time. Like
same.
Xbox people today and everything.
You're
I mean,
phony.
it
You're
happens.
big phony. Fucking people need to just calm down. People do realize this is video games, a child's medium, right? Like,
Yep.
that's just been adopted by adults. Well, MVG, thank you for being the first guest on Who the Fuck Is. Now that it's the end of the video, we can say that. If you'd like to find MVG, I'll have links to him in the description box down below. Any final words for the viewers, listeners?
Thank you for having me on, Sean. This was very enlightening, and yeah, all the best for the podcast. I'm sure you'll have some amazing guests on. So whoever's on next, I apologize because yeah, I'm the first. So
Whoever's on
yeah.
next better have better Coke than Australian Coke. That's all I got to say. All right, folks.
Yep.
Thank you for watching this. We'll catch you on the next one.